Hi, everybody. Will here with this week's interview chair brought to you by Canine Chronicle TV and ProPlan. Today on the interview chair, we have Carol Grossman. Sit back and relax, and it's great to see Carol, and she looks fabulous, so have a good time. Hi, everybody. Will here with this week's interview chair, and on the chair we have retired professional handler, retired ProPlan rep, Carol Grossman. Hi, Carol. How are you?
I'm wonderful, Will.
You look wonderful.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, it's good to see you. My gosh. So how are things out there right now? I'm down here. We had snow all day. So I'm sure you didn't have snow all day.
No, it's kind of sunny, and I closed the blinds so you wouldn't be blinded by the glare. It's not warm, but it's not what you would call cold either.
Where are you exactly?
Las Vegas.
Las Vegas? Oh, I love Las Vegas.
I know. I hear we're getting the baseball team too.
Yeah, and the hockey team, you had the Golden Knights.
We have everything here. Everything.
I was there. I went there a couple of years ago after the year I won the Irish International. I went down there just to get away, and it was so much fun. It's so much fun. Oh well. Let's start. The first question I'm going to ask you is, tell us how you got started in this crazy world of dogs.
Well, my first husband and I, when we got to the point where we could have a dog, he had a dog at home, Queenie. She was half boxer, half Great Dane, and he wanted a Great Dane. So obviously, I went along with it. I kind of liked Afghans, but that was okay. Great Dane was all right with me, and the difference in price was quite a bit. So Great Dane was more in our budget. We bought a pet. We went to some matches. We went to a couple of shows. We realized she was a pet, and it kind of blossomed from there.
That's not the end, though. We keep going, Carol.
No, well, we bred a few litters.
So you brought this Great Dane, and you showed her for a while. And did she do anything?
No, she was a pet. She was a pet.
She was a pet. So did you breed her? Or did you find another one and breed?
We bred her, and I can't even remember how many puppies she had. But before that, the breeder called, and her brother had been returned to him. The people complained he ate all their windowsills off. So he asked if we could keep him because he had a litter of puppies. And once the puppies went, he would have room to bring in another dog. So we said, okay. And when we got him, he was about 35 inches at the shoulder, and he looked like he was draped in pie dough. You could see every bone.
Oh.
I mean, I understood why he was eating windowsills because he wasn't getting any food. I don't know whether he just didn't eat or what the situation was, but, out came the big pot, called everybody, found out what to do, boiled the rice, added chicken or ground beef, made stuffed balls, learned how to do it. And he actually was a fairly decent dog that we did ultimately finish. Chuck started owner handling him, and along the way we met Bobby Barlow and Linda, and they were very helpful. And
where were you? Where were you? Where were you?
We were living in Maryland, near Annapolis, and Chuck had summer camp. He was in the reserves, so he had entered 2 shows. I can't remember the names of them, but anyway, he said, well, if you want the dog shown, you're going to have to show him. So I went out front, practiced, stood behind the sliding glass door, practiced. I really could hardly move the rear leg. It was so heavy. I had no idea how to do it. But I took him to the shows. I got a reserve, and that was it. Ultimately, he finished. We met Barbara Jarmalock along the way, and there was a handler from Louisiana area, Rufus Copeland. I don't know if you ever heard of him, but he was quite famous. And
I don't remember him at all.
He finished the dog on the Deep South Circuit for us. He was wonderful. He was really wonderful. And then Bobby showed him a little bit in the breed for us. And then it led to no to the breeder. You can't have him back. We're keeping him. And then along the way, we got another brindle bitch, and we're showing her. And then one day in the mail, we received a letter from Mary Kay Johnston. Now, I don't know if you remember her or not. Mary Dane Kennels.
I know the name of the kennels, yeah.
Okay, Bud Sliney handled for her, and they owned Chinby Regin's Metazell of Mary Dane, who held the all-time best in show record for a Great Dane until about 1969, when Lena beat the record with Kimba.
Wow.
So anyway, she said, I have a puppy. If you're interested, please contact me immediately, as I have other people who are interested. And of course, Chuck and I, we fell over each other running to the phone to call her. 2 days later, we were in Connecticut, and we bought Cartier and brought her home. And they were quite helpful. They signed our parent club membership. They were very old school. Mary Kay Johnston, the K standing for Kennedy. Supposedly the good side of the family that didn't bootleg. Jerry handled advertising, all the basketball games on the radio and stuff, the opera. I mean, they were wonderful. And they just taught me so much about dogs, about the sport. It was amazing. I was at her house when I got my first call to judge a match. And she said to me, don't do anything stupid like move two dogs together unless you want to point out to the crowd why you're going to point to one over the other. Don't confuse them. Stay to the same pattern in the ring. I mean, she was just really helpful. And the rest, I after a couple of litters of puppies, I decided that was not my thing. I would have terrible nightmares about them ending up like Dink did, skinny, not fed, not cared for. So I said, enough of that. I don't want to, that was not my thing. So I just got really interested in handling. And we got
How did that come about then? You showed your own dog, but how did you become Carol Grossman?
Well, when we got the motorhome, we didn't just leave and run to the next show site. We stuck around. And I watched. I went from ring to ring. I watched Janie. I watched Annie. I watched every top Doberman handler there was.
What year would this be, Carol?
About 1974. So we got the first Great Dane in 69. So that's what I did. And I would take a bit from this person and a bit from that person and kind of put it all together. And that ended up being me. But they were the ones really that I have to thank for giving me the material to become a handler and do a good job. And also I learned by staying on the showgrounds what you do when you carry dogs and what you don't do when you carry dogs. And I think if you ask anybody, they'll tell you that my van was the tidiest in town, the cleanest. I had, oh my gosh, I can't remember his name. He handles all the parking in the Northeast. Oh, Harry. Yes, I handled for Harry along the way. And I was handling 2 dogs for him. And so he paid me for one. And I said, you keep the money for the rest. And I need crates. And he built me 3 beautiful crates.
Oh, wow.
Yes. I don't remember. It's terrible names. I've been preparing for this. I've been trying to remember names. But Jane Kay's kennel was in Virginia. And I was good friends with the girl that worked for her. And she was on her way. Janie had retired, and she was on her way to Chicago to see the Mauries. She handled for them. And I don't think we need to explain who they are, but they were kind of very well known in the dog community. And she fell asleep behind the wheel.
Janie did?
No. Her assistant, who was a good friend of mine. And she was killed, and her pet Minpin was killed. But all the dogs in the wood crates lived. So that's why I decided that I would have wood crates, because if I was carrying somebody's dog, I owed them that, to take as good care as possible and keep them as safe as possible. So I can proudly say, after 28 years of handling, I never lost a dog. I never had a dog die. And I never had a Great Dane bloat.
Oh, wow.
I know. When I retired, I thought about it, and I thought, I missed a big one. I know.
Yeah, that's incredible. Like, I showed a lot of Irish setters. I grew up with Irish setters, and they're known for bloating too. And I had a couple bloat on me, and that's how I learned bloat kits, and I learned all about that. And I was talking to George this morning, George Alston, and he, just so everybody knows, he called while we were talking earlier. Anyway, I told him I was interviewing you today, and he was beside himself. He couldn't wait to watch it because he just thought you were the best. So, and he said her care, her presentation, there was nobody better in Great Danes. So
I tried to think of everything. You know, you're in that business, your rig, your van, your motorhome, it's your office. When your clients come to your office, especially when your office is where you're going to keep their pet, it should reflect well on you. And they should walk away not having one qualm about letting the dog travel with you. Now, I didn't carry a lot of dogs. Obviously, it's one person. Once I was on my own handling, I didn't carry. I only had 3 crates. And most times only 2 were full. I didn't have a third dog, especially during the summer and during the winter, because my dogs always came in the room with me. So I had a dog and a bitch. They came in the room. Everybody was fine. If they had a bloat issue, I was going to be right there. They were warm in the winter and cool in the summer. And that's just the way I did it.
That's the way it needs to be done, no matter what. Like I did another podcast earlier, and we were talking about how to choose a professional handler. And it's not just the ring present. There's so much more that goes into it, and it sounds like you embodied all that. So that's great. Tell me about who was your first best in show dog?
Well, I went best in show in Bermuda before I went best in show in the United States. So I
love showing in Bermuda.
I know.
I used to love it.
Well, we had sold a puppy to people who lived there. So when we went over, we stayed with them. It was wonderful. They had an acre. Can you imagine an acre in Bermuda? Fence. Yeah. So the dogs could run and get exercise. They weren't in a crate all the time. And then going over the botanical gardens was wonderful. And going in to see, the bird shows, that was fun too.
Did you have lunch at the hospital?
Pardon?
Did you have lunch at the hospital?
No.
Oh no, we used to go run across, have lunch. They had the best lunch. I don't know why, but they're fun.
As I recall, Fiona used to always pack a lunch for us, so we
Okay,
didn't have to go anywhere. And because we would have the dogs in the stalls, and that way we just eat lunch there. But my first best in show was under Henry Stecker.
Henry Stecker.
I loved him. I absolutely adored him. I could listen to him tell me stories about traveling on the train with the poodles and how it was in the old days. And we became...
You realize we're the old days now, right?
I know. We became really good friends. Anyway, he gave me the best in show. And the next day he gave me the group. And he said to me, "Do a good job. The lady who gave you the group yesterday is doing best in show today." So we went back to back best in shows.
Oh, good.
And then he got a group 2, group 4. He went top visitors dog and show. And, you're hooked after that.
Oh, for sure. And it's amazing. Those are small shows, but it's amazing who shows up there, what dogs you have to compete against when you get there.
I know. My motto was, you can never go anywhere where there isn't going to be somebody that's got a dog as good or better than yours.
Oh, exactly. It's competitive with you.
Yep.
Yeah, no question.
Then my next best in show dog was Sheen Water Gamble on me.
Wow.
And
how did that dog come about?
I'm not exactly sure how they decided. Oh, no. My first best in show dog in the States was the black dog, Chief Joseph.
Okay.
The Longos. And I know how that came about.
Let's hear that story.
I was not first choice. And the person they went to was handling a black dog at the time. And he said, "Yeah, I've got this black dog. The people live in Maryland. He's really not a very good dog, but, I'm winning with him." I know. And Tootie went back to Joe and said, I don't think we're going to do that. And so she came to me and asked me if I would like to handle the dog. And we broke records. He was the first black Great Dane to win the national. He was #1 black sire for years, to be beat out by his son. And he really is the history of black Great Danes as we know them today, thanks to Joe and Tootie.
Yeah. Well, they had a huge impact on the breed.
Yes. Yes, they did.
And the next dog was the Gamble dog then?
The Gamble dog. And I was in Ohio with Joe and Tootie, and it was getting close to the end of the year. And Chris O'Connell, who co-owned Gamble with Sally Chandler, people might know Kyle Chandler from Saturday Night Lights. Sally was his mother.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, they were big Great Dane breeders and exhibitors back in the day. Anyway, Chris came up to me and asked me if I would like to show Gamble the following year. And I said, I would love to. And there were a couple of shows at the end of the year Joe and Tootie weren't going to go to. So he asked me if I would handle Gamble at those shows. And I said, well, I need to check with Joe and Tootie first. And they said, have at it. Good luck. And we're ready to retire. So that was how I got Gamble. And He lived with me for a little over 3 years. And it was, that's hard.
It is hard. I know that feeling. Yeah.
I mean, if it's the crate banger or the yeller or the one that you have to, cuckoo them to eat, maybe when they leave, it's not so sad. But when it's the one who never does anything wrong, never misses a meal, is always loving, takes care of your kids like they're his kids, that's the one that's really hard to send home.
Oh, for sure. It's so funny. I showed this dog, I guess in the early 90s, and we had a bit of a personality conflict, the dog and I. And that was one of those dogs that you were looking forward to the end of the career so you could say goodbye. The dog did very well. But as he got picked up, I had this big, long, circular driveway. He got in the back of his owner's car and he stuck his head out the back window and he stared at me the whole time. I felt so bad.
They do talk to you. It could have been worse. Well,
what were some of your most memorable wins on Gamble?
All of them. I never had a best in show that wasn't memorable. I don't know, that just something about it that there's
You're
nothing
right.
like it. You won the biggest and the best show of all. So, there's nothing.
But you're right. You think of a lot of the best shows you've won and you think, oh, and even when I won one a few years ago on a young beagle bitch up here in Canada. And I get the same feeling, I get the same feeling.
Yeah. Well, I think winning the breed, winning best in show under Roxanne Mahan was the breeder judge.
Yeah.
And a very sweet lady and a friend who lived in Maryland. I mean, she even came to my parents' house eventually. And
she was wonderful. She used to come up here a lot. So
yeah. And then going best in show under her husband at over a 3,000 dog show in Arizona. I mean, so I may not be able to remember all of the 15, but I know all of the 15, the feeling was the same. So,
there's nothing
but anyway,
like it. You're right.
I said he went home after the garden. He won the breed at the garden and he went home. And about 3 months later, there was a Rottweiler regional in Atlanta. So I told Mike, we had a day off. And I said, I'm going to go visit Gamble and see how he is. And Mike said, fine. So the last thing I grabbed as I left the hotel room was the box of Kleenex. So I got in the car, I drove to Sally's, and I pulled up to the fence, and he was on the front porch. And he came down the steps and stood on top of the fence, and he looked, and all of a sudden I could see when he recognized it was me, and he just went crazy. And she had all these paddocks, and they all had Great Dane bitches in them. It was a huge, huge place. And he ran. Sally let me in, and he took off running, and he went to every paddock, like to show me the girls. These are my girls. This is my girl, and this is my girl. And I mean, you could tell he loved it there. So we went in the house, and Sally and I were just sitting there talking, and he laid down beside me, and he put his head on my leg. And you know what? He was happy. I never shed a tear. I walked out of there. I mean, I could cry now, but
yeah.
Then I knew he was happy. So it was good.
They make you feel good. They really do. So. What dog came after Gamble?
Oh, after Gamble was a dog named Jake. I put a couple of best in shows on him for the owners, Ron Biscaro and David. And really in between, or even before Gamble actually, was Prima Vera. She was a black bitch. She was a Cheech daughter. And she was a sister to Primo, the Cheech son that they did some really nice winning with. And they brought her to me on the Cherry Blossom circuit, and we started on Saturday at the Great Dane Club of Maryland, and she finished the next Saturday at Old Dominion, and we all looked at each other and said, what are we going to do now? We never, ever thought that she would finish in a week. So Tootie kind of put her away, and it was coming time for the national, and she said, I think I'd like to show Prima Vera. And I was handling Primo. And back then, you didn't have 10 specials, They didn't, you were at the mercy of the way the judge wanted to judge the dogs that day. So you might have a dog and you might have a bitch, but you didn't have 5 and 10 specials because it didn't work out. Now they do groups so that you can have multiple dogs. I think that's why they do it. And it's nicer. You get to see all the dogs in small groups and actually get a chance to look at them. Hi, sweetheart. So anyway, Tootie said, well, what am I going to do with Prima? And I said, hire Rick Sorchak. This is for Lynn. This is my friend's daughter who calls me Nanny Carol. You go, okay? Because I'm not done yet, all right? Are you almost done? Almost. So go in my bedroom, okay? I thought you were calling earlier. Anyway, okay. So I told her to hire Rick Sorchak. He did a nice job. He had great hands on the dogs, and I could trust him with the dog, mine, without any qualms. Well, the way Leon Reimer separated it was all the dogs and then all the bitches. And it wasn't just one swipe through all the dogs. It was the first swipe and then the cuts. So I made the first cut with Primo, but I didn't make the second cut. So I came back and I said to Chitty, I'm handling Prima. And she said, well, I hired Rick. What am I going to do? I said, nothing. Pay him. I'm not charging you. I'm just handling her. So she won the national. Yeah. She was the first Black bitch to ever win the national. And it was probably one of the biggest surprises ever in 28 years of handling. I never went in there expecting her to win it. I just wanted to be on her. And that was a thrill, a real thrill.
I bet. So you showed, what other breeds did you show, Carol?
I showed a few dachshunds when I moved to California. I showed some Ridgebacks, some very nice Ridgebacks, finished a bunch of them for some really nice clients. And of course, I married a Rottweiler breeder. So the girl who didn't touch Rottweilers, never went to the Rottweiler ring, never offered to cover a Rottweiler, had to live with them. And actually, I took Gamble with me. And Mike had just brought this bitch home from Germany, a Rottweiler bitch. Her name was Brett. And Brett and Gamble were fast buddies. When it was time to eat, she would eat all her food. Then she would walk over to him and look him in the eye. And when he looked her in the eye, he knew he had to walk away. And she very calmly finished his food. So when I caught on what was going on, I was like, okay, got to do something. And I'm like, what am I going to do? Well, I could separate them. Well, that was a hassle. And then all of a sudden I realized, so I put the food down. We fed in 5-quart bowls. He would stick his head in the bowl and never make eye contact with her. And if he didn't make eye contact with her, he didn't have to give up his food to her. And so they kind of figured it out on their own before I ever got around to separating them. So they were really cute together. But handling Rottweilers was intense in those days.
I'm sure.
There were more than one judge getting bitten, unfortunately. But
oh my God, I would see Brian Still and he'd have bandages everywhere,
No. I never got bit. Never.
I'm sure you didn't. No.
Never got bit. But Michael taught me about the breed. Michael took me to Germany, took me to the Club Seeger show, took me to breeders there. I mean, I was so intent on learning. I did fall asleep one time on the sofa they were talking about dogs. And when I woke up, the breeder that we were visiting said, "Oh, your wife is awake, Michael." It was very embarrassing, but he did. He took me all over, and I got to meet some very famous people: Tony Heiskins, Robin Park Kennels, and she's the lady that sold Mike and Clara Nelson. Actually, they saw Nelson in the whelping box when he was a puppy, and they tried to buy him then, but he was already sold. And Tony got him back because the owner said he wasn't tough enough. So that was our tradition. Last show of the year, Long Beach, we would go and have lunch on the Queen Mary, and Clara pulled out the letter from Tony. And she said, "So if you want him, he's available." And Michael said, "Buy him." So they bought him. I went back east for Christmas with my family. Mike stayed because the dog was coming. And when he picked me up at the airport, all he said to me was, "Don't open the door till I tell you to." Another killer. And so he tells me, "Open the door," and I open the door and I get in. Here is this huge Rottweiler all over me, kissing me and loving me like he had known me his entire life. Wow. And I finally named him the Will Rogers of Rottweilers. He never met a dog or a person he didn't like. And his first best in show, Chuck Trotter, belated Chuck Trotter, was judging the breed. He had done Great Danes, and then I went in with the Rottweilers. And when he was judging Nelson, he bent down to go over his shoulders. It was kind of a sunny day, so he had sunglasses on, and Nelson licked him like this, right up the side of his face, caught the sunglasses, and they flipped on the ground. And he didn't even straighten up. He just turned his head and looked at me and said nothing. And I laughed. And I said, "Isn't it nice to have a Rottweiler that kisses the judges and doesn't bite them?" Trying to make a joke of it because I was a little embarrassed. But anyway, gave him the breed. And that night he gave him best in show. And
was that your first best in show Rottweiler?
Yes, he had 5 best in shows, but he is the only. He was the only one of all the Rottweilers that I showed that had that temperament. That was just so easygoing, and he picked his loves. He loved Lena Basquette. She put him up in one show, and whenever he saw her, he would moan and groan until he got to go to her. And it got to the point where I could never show to her again with this dog. I mean, it was just never going to happen because we both would have been terribly embarrassed if I'd walked in the ring with him. And then Gene Zephyrus. He loved Gene Zephyrus just the same way. If he saw Gene, he would scream until Gene came over. And we were in Albuquerque for that 4-day cluster, that used to be so big, and everybody came to it. And there were so many best in show dogs and top dogs there. It was just a really great 4 days. And I would bring him up to the group ring and let him sit on one of the tables in one of the other rings. And Gene would come over, because he had to, just to keep him quiet. And Nelson would lick his face. By the end of the 4 days, his face was all chapped.
Oh, wow.
But that's the kind of dog he was. I mean, he was just a really great dog.
Great ambassador. Yeah.
Yes, he was. And he was... we were at Bakersfield shows, and we got the call from Clara that he had died. And Mike said to me, he was born on April Fool's and he died on April Fool's.
Wow.
And Mike said to me, he always was a comedian. He always made you laugh. He just, why not be born on April Fool's and die on April Fool's? So,
that's an incredible story.
I know. He was a great dog, really a great dog. Forget the showing, forget anything. And I used to love taking pictures of the dogs in the bed with me because Mike would take them to Germany and, they would be horrified that we let a dog in the bed. Back then they were in their kennels. The husband did all the work. He fed them. He took care of them. The wife wasn't involved with the dogs. The only thing the wife did was wear the second number they gave you at the show so she could relieve her husband from running because they made you run a lot. But they did allow you to have people come in and take over. So, but he was a great dog. And his sons were good. I finished a lot of them. I can't even remember how many Rottweilers I finished. And the only ones I handled were Mike and Clara's, what they bred or what was sired. Like if it was a Nelson puppy, I could show it. Other than that, I didn't touch anything out of their bloodline.
They stayed in the same family. That's a good idea.
Right. Until after when Mike died, then I started handling everybody's Rottweilers. I had a lot of Rottweilers too. A lot of Great Danes, a lot of Rottweilers. I didn't need to show 15 breeds because I could stack the ring in 2 breeds with a lot of dogs. So every once in a while, like I said, there'd be a Ridgeback or a Dachshund, but that was it. Danes and Rottweilers were really my passion.
When did you retire from handling? What year?
Oh, God, 2002.
2002?
Yeah. Rick Plout came to me and he said, we know that Purina is going to hire a rep for the West Coast, and we want you to apply for the job. We know somebody else is applying, and we would really rather work with you, and we're all tired of watching you limp. So I said, just, Corky and Sue were dear friends. Sue was like a sister to me. And I said, Sue, I don't even have a resume. She said, that's okay. We're going to Santa Maria next weekend. We'll do your resume next weekend, which is what we did. And then Ernie, who was the head of the breeder enthusiast group, Ernie Plank, he did call me and he asked me, he said, we're coming to Las Vegas for a sales meeting and possibly you could arrange a dinner and I'll get to meet you. And I said, fine. He said, well, we're at Caesars, so if you'll take care of dinner arrangements, just let me know where. So, I made reservations and there were about 8 of us and we chatted through dinner. And then afterwards he, got a little more specific and he asked me, would I be willing to work Palm Springs, Orange Empire, and the Denver shows? So he could see whether I could handle the booth or not.
Right.
And I said, well, at Palm Springs and Orange Empire, I'm handling, but I'll give you what time I have when I'm not in the ring, which was agreeable to him. And I remember sitting at the table the end of the Palm Springs shows, and they were 4,000 dogs. And I don't know.
One of my favorite shows.
Yeah. I don't know who ordered for those shows, but we ran out of every prize that we had. I was sitting there with a legal pad taking names and addresses to send prizes to because we didn't have enough. And I remember Ernie saying to me afterwards, you know everybody, don't you? I said, well, I have been out here handling for a while, and I did handle on the East Coast. So I had the blessing of knowing people from both coasts and a lot in the middle. So anyway, I worked the 3 weekends and he called me and he hired me. And I was there 16 years.
16 years, wow.
Yeah. I was fortunate to be there when we finally got the Westminster show to sponsor. That was a really big deal, and it was mine. So I can't tell you how wonderful it was to work with them. I love Florence. I really enjoyed working with her. You know, a lot of people said, well, she's kind of curt and short. I said, no, she isn't. She's a businesswoman. You ask her to do something or tell her you need something, it got done. And I decided if that was the way that she did business with me, that's how I would do business with her. So there was no fluff to it. You did what you were asked to do, and you listened, and it was wonderful. I mean, the hospitality room, it was so nice to be able to give the handlers a hot breakfast in the morning and their assistant.
It was always a good breakfast.
I know. I handled the food too. and then a nice lunch. And you know, it was a little bit expensive, so we did cut back to box lunches eventually, but you still got a hot breakfast in the morning, full hot breakfast.
And it was the only place to get coffee right away, too.
I know. It was, trust me, those were, well, Monday was like a 17-hour day, and Tuesday was a 19-hour day for me.
Wow.
So, yes, it was. Because, you know, when it's your event, you're there from the start to the end. Right. You know, you're the last one to leave. So, but it was a wonderful experience. I loved it. I really loved it.
It's a huge difference in the pro plan there. Huge difference. So,
yeah. It was great. I wouldn't do anything different.
So you retired from pro plan 2018, is that right?
Yep.
Yeah. And you had no aspirations to judge after that?
No, I really didn't. And now the way traveling is, I wouldn't do it anyway. It's awful. I mean, really I just went to the East Coast and back, and my daughter bought me the ticket because I refused to get on another plane again. Between handling dogs and Purina, I had so much traveling. I really, really didn't want to travel anymore. So she forced me to come back. But, I mean, she had an ulterior motive. My oldest granddaughter had twins day before Thanksgiving, and she was going to have to leave her husband for a week to go help her daughter with twins, and she's not a cook. So that's what I did for 4 days. I filled the freezer so Bob would have something to eat. But anyway, had a great visit. It was a good time.
Oh, good.
So
you still go to any dog shows locally then?
Occasionally. I wasn't able to go to the Las Vegas shows because Victoria was, she was sick. She'd had a cluster of seizures, 4 on Thursday night and 2 on Friday morning.
Victoria is your Chihuahua puppy.
Right, right. And I just really didn't feel good leaving her, and I didn't feel like after that trauma that she needed to be driving to a dog show. So,
dog show. Yeah. Understandable. So what do you do with your free time?
Oh, well, I told you about the pet sitting business, and then once Victoria developed the seizures, that kind of put the end of that, although I loved doing it. One of my clients was a pilot, and they had 3 old rescues, all girls. I called them the Golden Girls. And I worked for them until the last one died.
Aww.
So, yeah, but they were so cute. They were really adorable. And you know, crickety and, the whole 9 yards. But you love them no matter what they are, how they end up.
Tell how much you love dogs, just the way your eyes sparkle when you talk about them.
Well, I did buy a Chihuahua because when I brought Victoria home, Lily was still alive, my border bitch. You know, the face of Purina. She sat in that director's chair every show I went to where she went. She sat in that chair from the time I got there in the morning until the time we left at night. She might take a couple naps during the day. And of course, she had her walks and her people who came to the booth and walked her, as many did. And, but she loved it. And actually, she never liked retirement. I mean, I think she was lost. But anyway, she lived to be almost 16, but she never was really friendly with Victoria. She would let Victoria eat out of the same bowl with her. They would sleep together and always touching. Victoria was always touching her, but she didn't play with Victoria or anything. She was kind of her own soul. So I had to spend thousands of dollars to buy another Chihuahua so Victoria would have a friend because, she had grown up in Jenny and Christian's house with the dogs and the baby, and she was used to all of that. And, the last Frenchie that Jenny showed, Princeton, she was the boss. Let me just say that. I mean, she could shoot him a look with her eye, and he would turn his head. He knew. He knew he couldn't look at her anymore, or something bad would happen. It was adorable. But anyway, so I bought her a friend. I bought a little fawn, or they call them Reds, bitch from Chrissy Green. And she's Victoria's best friend. They sleep together. They play together. They eat together. They do everything together. So it was a good move because when I lost Lily, then even Victoria's pretend friend was gone. Now she had envy. So it all worked out really well. Yeah. But there's no more for me.
Yeah. Oh. Yeah. So if a youngster came up to you and said they wanted to be a professional handler, what kind of advice would you give them?
It's hard to have a family life. It's hard to have kids and show dogs. I mean, if you just want to play at handling, you can do it. But if you really want to be a handler, it's tough. Part of what I did it for was my one oldest daughter wanted to ride. My younger daughter wanted to skate. So by the time you have a pony and feed and a barn, and you buy clothes for the horse shows, and of course kids grow, inches in a minute. And so you're constantly having to replace tack and gear and stuff because they've grown out of it, boots. And then you're traveling, so you have to pay somebody to take the pony. You have to pay somebody to take the kid. So you end up basically handling it for their pleasure. That's what I did anyway. My younger daughter wanted to roller skate. During the week, I took Marianne to her lessons, her riding lessons, and wherever else she had to go. And Jeanette, I took her to the skating rink every day to practice or to be there for lessons. I can't tell you how many rhinestones I put on skating costumes while I was sitting in the rink. I can't tell you how I would watch the kids go to the vending machine and buy candy bars, and I couldn't stand it anymore. So I would make big glass jars full of trail mix for them to eat when they came off, the floor for a rest because they needed energy. And, but a candy bar is only a quick fix. And then you come down for it. So, yes, I loved handling dogs. I loved making money so that my kids could have a wonderful upbringing. And that's really where it all went.
Well, I have one more question for you then, Carol.
Sure.
And then I'll let you go because I know you have somebody that's waiting for you.
Yeah.
If you were to meet the 20-year-old Carol now, is there any advice you'd give her?
Oh, yes. Take better care of yourself. Wear better shoes. It is. And I don't think, I mean, you want me to put on a pair of sass? I don't think so. I used to look at Teresa and Irene Bivens' daughter, Teresa Nail.
Teresa Nail.
And I would think, how can you wear those ugly shoes? They are the ugliest shoes I've ever seen. But you want to know what? I would wear them. I would save my cute little flats for when I was done showing, and I would wear those shoes while I was running around the ring because it's important. I mean, I have terrible knees. You know, I think a lot of I know how many people who are handling who've had double knee replacements or single knee replacements in their handling.
I've had a hip replacement. So.
Well, you know, hip replacements I think are easier.
They are. My dad had his knees done, and hips are easier to recover from, for sure.
Right. And I think it's easier to continue to run if you've had a hip done. Once they do your knee, there's something different about it. I don't know that I would have been able to adjust because I didn't have my knee done until I had been working for Purina maybe about 4 years, 6 years, something like that. But then I had standing all day in the booth, you know, and running from ring to ring to get information and running over to take pictures and present. You know, we all had to do that. I mean, the girls in the booth, they all had their opportunity. I would usually do it the last day when they were packing up. And because I was very fortunate to have a girl from Chicago work for me until I retired. And she was with me about 8 of the 16 years. And I couldn't have done it without her. And I'm going to give her a shout out. Her name is Deb Cooper. And she was absolutely wonderful. She took care of me and she knew how I liked things and she did them the way I liked them. And when they packed my van, it was amazing. You would look at everything and think, oh, there's no way that's all going to go in this van.
That fit in there.
And it always fit. They always made it fit. And she was the best. I couldn't have done it without
the people that help you are the most important in this business.
Yes, they are. Yes, they are. Mm-hmm. She is still a friend today. We still talk almost daily. If she's not working, you know, when she's working, she's got her mind doing kind of the same thing you do with her table talks. But yeah,
exactly. I see Deb and I both work for a Chronicle. So whenever she's at a show doing her table talk, we're always together. We're always talking. She's great.
Want to know what that is?
That mean my time's up?
No, it means it's time for Victoria's seizure meds.
Oh, okay. Well, I won't keep you from Victoria and your other guest. Carol, I can't thank you much. So much. I couldn't wait to do this, and people can't wait to see it. So
it was my pleasure, Will. Really. You take care. Stay healthy. Stay running.
I will.
I wish I could run with you. Thank you.
All right, Carol. You take care.
Okay. All right. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Carol. That was great. I knew it would be great. And if you like what you see here, make sure you press the like, share, and subscribe button. Don't forget to subscribe on the podcast. And don't forget about the other podcasts we do, the Dog Show Drive Canadian version, and the Coach's Corner with none other than George Alston. So I'm sure I'll see you somewhere. Take care.